Welcome to Accelerate My Practice. I'm glad you could join me here today. Today I want to talk about the election. It seems as though there's a lot of uncertainty around the upcoming election, and not to get into whose candidate's better and take a side on that, because I think it's a race of multiple bozos. And so the challenge becomes whose bozo is going to win, because of course if my bozo wins, then your person's just an idiot, and it becomes just this huge issue of uncertainty. And so while doing some research on this, and where this came from is, as I've been traveling in the last few weeks, I'm hearing from a lot of doctors across the country. I'm hearing from people outside of dentistry that they're concerned about the outcome of the election. And as a result, everyone's kind of hunkering down and hanging on and not sure what to do, and just scared maybe that the opposing bozo is going to win. And it's just interesting to me as I research this, and then I look back through history. First off, if I look through the history of political elections, I'm not sure when there was an election where one side liked or respected the other side. I think it's always been, hey, if I don't like your guy, they're crazy. My guy's great, and your guy's nuts, and vice versa. It's something that's been this way for an eternity. I think it's safe to say that almost all politicians just be crazy. I don't know how else to put it. So I don't think it matters who wins. They're both nuts. But as I look back through history, I see an interesting trend that takes place. And I want to kind of focus back on a few businesses that started during tough times or started in their garage and draw a parallel to current times. So one example is you go back to 1939. We're in the midst or the tail end of the Great Depression. Of course, now we know through the paradigm of history that was the end of the Great Depression. But at the time, of course, they had no idea. And at that time, two guys, Bill Hewlett and David Packard, decided to start this business called HP. And of course, now you're sitting there going, well, duh, it's HP. Of course they're successful starting in their garage at tough times. Well, back then, their number one, or their product they were selling, was an audio oscillator. I don't have any idea what it is. I didn't bother to research it because I didn't know what it was. But look at the garage these guys started in. I mean, it's literally a little itty-bitty garage, and they started building computers there in 1939. Who had even heard? No one had heard of a computer because they invented it. So it's fascinating to me to look at this trend and see how these guys coming out of the Great Depression were able to be successful. Another example for you, 1969, at 16 years old, Michael Kittredge decides to go melt some crayons in his garage and put scent in them, and next thing you know, he's starting the Yankee Candle Company. Who would have thunk? So it's fascinating to see, again, how garages are able to start businesses. That picture is literally the one from HP. In fact, that's kind of considered the center of Silicon Valley and where it all came from. But then I fast forward, because of course now you're sitting there thinking, well, yeah, but that was forever ago. How about in current times? And as I look at examples like that, I go to 1994. And this guy by the name of Jeff Bezos decides that he's going to start selling books through an online bookstore. Who would have thought this would have been successful? Books? And next thing you know, he's selling everything, all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's nothing you can't get through Amazon. You probably buy a car. I have no idea. Probably not, but you get the idea. So, he starts in 1994, sells his first book in 1995, and by 1997 does an IPO. And look, it's a normal house where he started his business, just like any other house. This is literally a picture of his home. The address, if you're wanting to fact check me, is 10704 Northeast 28th Street, Bellevue, Washington. So, in case you're going, well, sure, that was 1998, it's Jeff Bezos, it's Amazon, of course. Well, funny, you fast forward to 1998. And then all of a sudden you have these a couple grad students, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, if I'm sure I'm butchering his name, I've been doing that lately. And all of a sudden they're starting this thing called Google. I don't know what Google is. Of course I know what Google is now, but back then, did anyone know what Google was? So they decided to go try and sell this because they're in grad school at Stanford and they're having a hard time keeping up for $1 million to Excite. They started this in Susan, I don't know how you say Susan's last name. Susan, that's Susan. They started this in Susan's garage in September 1998. And of course, we all know who Google is now. You want an example in dentistry, you go back a number of years, 1989 I think it was, and all of a sudden there's this guy, Walter Merman, a professor in Germany, who decides he's going to start making teeth via CAD/CAM. Imagine back to the 1980s when you were doing dentistry, if you were doing dentistry back then. Some of you might have still been just being born. But you're doing dentistry back in 1980. Can you imagine any technology that's going to mill a tooth that's going to allow you to do single tooth dentist or single appointment dentistry? No way, much less aesthetic dentistry. I mean, PFMs were standard of care back then. Now, you go to some doctors that say PFMs are terrible. Not judging you if you're doing PFMs. But it's just interesting to see how this evolution has taken place. So what lessons can be learned from this? To me, when I look at some of these people, and I've read biographies of some of these people who started these businesses, I can tell you what they weren't focused on. They weren't focused on the Great Depression. They weren't focused on inflation and the cost of money. I mean, you go back to when Yankee Candle Company started in 1969 and through the 70s. How much were interest rates if you wanted to borrow money? It was 15, 20%. You tell someone now they're going to get a loan for 15, 20%, they flip you the bird and run off going, you're insane. And yet that was normal back then. And yet he's starting a business. So it's interesting to look and see how this evolution's taken place. So all these people, what they weren't focused on were these external factors. So the question becomes, how can you recession-proof or election-proof your dental practice? And the key in my mind of how you do it is, first off, you get focused on the things you have control over. You have no control over what the election results are going to be. Can you influence them by voting? Absolutely. And I encourage everybody to go vote. Please vote for my moron, not yours. And so I encourage you to vote because there is an area of control. And you know, I get it. Will my vote make a difference? Who knows? If we all think it won't make a difference, of course it won't. But if we all go vote, it will. So go vote for whoever your favorite idiot is that's running for president. But outside of that, what impact can that have on your practice? Well, it could be big, it could be small, it's hard to say. But if you sit around waiting for that impact to happen, sitting around going, ooh, I'm not going to make any decisions. I mean, I was talking to someone in the telecom business just today, and he's like, yeah, you know, I'm running into this, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And I'm like, are you insane, dude? Just get out there and focus on what you do. You can't wait to see what the election results are going to be. And yet I'm running into some doctors who are like, you know, I want to wait and see what happens before I invest. Man, if you'd have told Disney that, or Jobs that, or the person who invented Harley Davidson or any of these other companies, they'd have looked at you and said, I don't really care. I'm going to go do what I do, and I'm going to do it really, really well. And they started in the face of even bigger adversity than election uncertainty. So my whole take on it is, what can you control in your practice? What can you improve in your practice? Can you improve how you and your team communicate with your patients? Can you make sure that your patients get the most bang for their dental buck, if you will, by delivering them exceptional service, by giving them great restorations that will last a long time, by offering them ideal dentistry instead of, ooh, maybe we can patch this. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine recently who went to see his dentist. He's in the dental industry. Goes to see his dentist. He's like, he tries to patch this and patch this and patch this. And after about 4 failed attempts at doing fillings on a tooth over a year or two, in all fairness, he ended up doing a crown. He's like, man, why did he not just do the right thing from the beginning? And the reason is because he was too busy trying to save his friend money instead of just offering them ideal outcomes. My experience is, if you want to increase your patient's certainty, their consumer confidence, the trick is to make sure you have confidence. If you're walking in going, oh man, I don't know, what do you think is going to happen with the election? Do you think it's going to go wrong? Do you think that bozo is going to win? What are you doing to their confidence? The worst thing you can do is be talking to your team and your patients about what could go wrong if bozo number 1 or bozo number 2 wins the election. No disrespect to the bozos, by the way. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek to illustrate the point of, I'm not placing my faith in either presidential candidate, or however many there are right now, 3 or 4. I'm not placing my faith in my future in their hands. I'm just not willing to. Instead, what I'm going to do is focus on the things that I control. You know, Stephen Covey used to always talk about the circles of concern and the circles of influence. You know, am I concerned about election outcomes? Sure, of course. Can I influence it at all? Not really. I mean, aside from going and placing my vote and trying to convince all you guys to vote for my idiot. That's the only way that I can influence it. But outside of that, how can I influence it? I can influence it by making my business operate amazingly well, by making sure that my business is being efficient, by making sure that we're maximizing every opportunity, by really being focused on the most important thing in your dental office, improving your patient's oral health. If all I do is focus on giving my patients ideal oral health, improving it from wherever it is here to over here, and giving them ideal solutions, and then trying to find ways to make it affordable for them, that's all you can do. And I'm certain if you control that process, train your team up, make sure they're focused on the right things, focused on what they're for, not what they're afraid of, and then you yourself remind them constantly, we are here to drive patient health. I don't know what's going to happen in the election. Some idiot's going to win, I'm pretty sure. It's the way it's worked for since 1776. That's not going to change. Do they have your best interest in mind? Man, I don't have any idea. I'm not going to make this a political Republican, Democrat, take a stand and tell you how you're wrong sort of dissertation here. I'm going to tell you how you're wrong is by worrying about it, because it won't do you any good. All you can do, winters are coming. There's no doubt in my mind. I realize it's funny saying that in springtime, but that's okay. Winter's coming from an economic perspective, regardless of who the bozo is. Maybe there's a great depression coming. I've heard lots of people predicting it. Maybe that's coming. But until it does, should I not make hay while the sun is shining, going back to my farming roots? Should I not get out there and make as much money as I possibly can, invest it in the smartest places I can, so I'm prepared for winter? Is that not what they did in the old days when you had to go like raise your food and stash it away so you could make it through the winter? You'll notice back in the old days or animals, what they don't do is just hunker down and wait and see. What they do is they prepare. They go, if you're a squirrel, you go stash away as many nuts, acorns as you possibly can, so you have them stashed away for the long, cold winter. So my question is to you, are you stashing away the things that you need to stash away? Or are you frozen waiting to see what's going to happen? Because I'm fairly certain being frozen and waiting to see what's going to happen is not going to have you prepared. It's going to have you frozen and waiting to see what happens. And if the sky falls, sadly it falls and it just crushes your neck. It's not a good thing. So I think the best thing that we can do is what things can we control? What processes in your business can you control? What things can you invest in your business right now to ensure and increase the probability of your success in your practice? Or should you just wait and see? I'm not a fan of wait and see. I don't like to placate my future to crazy person number one or crazy person number two and see what the election holds as to whether or not I'm going to like the outcome. So action is the key. Always has been, always will be. Those of you who've gone through our live program, you've probably seen me do the illustration where I stand there with something in my hand and I go, who wants this? Who wants this? Who wants this? And I just keep saying it and everyone raises their hand. I want it. I want it. I even had one person who stood up, said, I want it. And then they sat back down recently. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I keep asking the question until finally someone just gets annoyed, walks up, rips it out of my hand and takes it. And then I go, man, look at that. They must have really wanted it. The rest of the people wanted it enough to raise their hand, maybe stand up. And the one didn't even want it enough to stay standing. They sat back down. I'm not picking on you if you're watching this show. It just illustrates the point of how bad do you want success in your life? How bad do you want your business to succeed? If you want it bad enough, I can tell you the key. Action. Action's the key. Sitting around waiting to see is usually certain death. I mean, I can sit around and wait and see if my coronary disease gets worse. I can sit around and wait and see if my cancer gets worse. I can sit around and wait and see who's going to win the election. I can sit around and wait and see what's going to happen in the stock market, or I can take action. Action is the key. I hope the message you hear from me is to take action. Go vote for whoever your favorite moron is. I will vote. I encourage every one of you to vote. I encourage you to take action to become educated before you go vote, please. Be educated about who you're voting for, then go vote, and then make a plan for the things that you can control. What things can you control in your business, in your life, in your personal life that will prepare you for winter? Because winter's coming, I promise you. It comes every single year, sometime November, depending on where you live. And it comes in business too. It's cyclical, but it will absolutely come again. There's no doubt in my mind. It came in 2001 with the burst of the tech bubble. It came in 2008 with a real estate bubble. There's another bubble coming. There's been a bubble every 10, 15 years, in some cases even shorter. So what action can you take today in your business, in your practice, in your life to prepare for that next bubble bursting? I hope you take that action. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me, to your coach. Let us know what questions you might have. I don't know if you're someone who's a client of ours watching this or if you're someone who's out on the internet. Our website's right there. If you've got questions about what to do in your business, shoot us an email. We'll gladly help you out. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you the next time we're on AMP TV, which is every single week. If you're seeing us out in the public forum, check us out on YouTube. Follow us there and keep watching. We'll keep doing what we can to help you have a plan for your future. Thanks for your time. Have a wonderful day. Can't wait to see you next week. Until then, have a great day. What if you could have the practice of your dreams? What's holding you back? Imagine a life where you have everything you ever wanted.